Hello and welcome to episode 4 of Wind Your Neck In, or episode 5, depending on when I release this. It's an absolute honor and a privilege today to welcome one of, well, I think if you took a poll of everybody who loves cricket in the world, probably one of the most talismanic and successful cricket batsmen to have played cricket. So I'm hugely honored to welcome AB de Villiers to the show today. AB, thank you for taking the time. How are you keeping?
I'm very good, thank you very much, and thanks for the introduction.
Yeah,
Very kind
people,
word.
people always get embarrassed when you pump them up, but that's my job. My job is to pump you up. So, but I think when researching these things, AB, I spend quite a bit of time making sure I get as much of the detail as I possibly can. And when you type in AB de Villiers into Google, there's a lot of very positive things said because of a lot of the amazing work that you've done in cricket. So what the plan is today is just to delve into how you got there, how you worked towards that from a young age, and then to kind of pick through the psychological and physical performance factors that enter into how you can go and spank, 149 off 44 balls like you did when you played in that purple patch, which we will get to. So first of all, let's just go into the IPL, because obviously you're in, I believe you're in a kind of off-season period at the moment. Is that correct?
That's right, yes.
IPL in India, right? I've seen a few of the Netflix documentaries that rock around, like on the Mumbai Indians, and obviously you're at a very successful team there. What is it like being in India, the main, a population of 1.3 billion people, and their first choice sport is cricket? What is it like being there as one of the most, influential and successful cricket players in the country?
It is obviously amazing. Having grown up in South Africa, I certainly never experienced crowds like that in international scenes here in South Africa. I mean, we are 60 million population in SA, and compared to India, I think it's about 1.4 billion at the moment.
Yeah.
And cricket is the main sport there, where cricket is not quite the main sport in South Africa. So quite contrasting. Um, when I arrived there in India for the first time in the IPL, I certainly did not know what to expect, and I didn't expect that to happen. Crowds of 80,000 plus. Going absolutely crazy about the game, and people actually wanting to meet me I was not very well known in the cricketing circles when I started my first year in the IPL, and it felt like everyone in India already knew me. But they do that with all the players, so it was an incredible experience. Just to see the hype and the electricity of what cricket creates in India, what was quite special. And obviously 13 to 15 years later now, sort of got used to it, but I don't think I'll ever get used to that vibe of when you walk onto the field and 80,000 people are chanting your name or the team's name. And it's just, I mean, it's difficult to put that in words.
Yeah, I can only imagine. And I know there's the chant is ABD, ABD. And you see that like it's pretty cool. They don't even like have to say the full name, it's just the initials. But the buzz you must get when you go out there, it must be insane. But with that, it probably brings certain elements of pressure or is it perceived pressure that maybe you don't feel?
It's very humbling to start off with, and it's obviously a great privilege and an honor to go through experiences like that. But it certainly puts a certain amount of pressure on you, and once I feel almost that anticipation puts a pressure on you. You do something special in the field, and the public sort of expects you to do that every time.
Yeah.
And we all know that it's not possible to replicate every time in sports. It's a proper leveler, the game of cricket. The 1 minute you're the top of the world, and the next minute you get a first ball and you walk with your tail between your legs. 80,000 people sitting there dead quiet, like all disappointed. So it is tough. And then the hardest thing of it all is when you sit in your hotel room that evening and the next day, and you sort of try and assess what went wrong, and you have to deal with the disappointment, and then you start putting pressure on yourself, and that is the most dangerous pressure of them all.
Yeah, that's brilliant. Just so you know, if I look down, I'm only writing down little bits here that I'm going to steal for little bits of gold dust. I think so one of the things, the on the field really interests me, and the review process I would love to get into a little bit later. One of the things I was thinking about, obviously in Worcester here, it's nowhere near the same scale. The closest thing we have is basically Premier League football, soccer, which is like huge over here. They're hugely successful with crowds of up to, well, Old Trafford's like a 70, 90, 80,000 capacity stadium. That's the equivalent for us over here. How do you go about, like, I don't know, sneaking out for a coffee or like getting time away from the pressures of that? Or how do you manage your time there so you do get time away from that?
Yeah, you don't really take that on, to be honest. It's too hectic to get out. But I have tried it before, and it almost drains you more than it does you any good to get out. So I've had my
Yeah.
family over, and I can't expect my wife to be in the hotel for 2.5 months with the kids. So we do plan a little bit to try and go to a mall or to a restaurant. We take some security guards with.
Yeah.
Nine out of 10 times it ends up in an absolute mess of a couple of thousand people all of a sudden pop up out of nowhere and they're around you, and it's
Yeah.
chaos. I mean, it
You
takes you
just
about.
tell the wife to like go ahead and just leave you behind. Just like go get the kids to safety. I'll deal with this.
There's always that warning cry of, listen, we are getting out of this mall as soon as possible. We run as fast as we can to the taxi, get in and get out.
Yeah.
Because the minute that ball breaks, it's impossible to stop. And I mean, it spreads like a wildfire. But
Absolutely.
yeah, I mean, there are a couple of spots we try to go to, but um, the people there love cricket. I mean, they know every single cricket player. They know their stats. They know their stat better than I know my own stats. So
Mm.
I can relate to that. Growing up, meeting people like John T. Rhodes, I was like that. And if you times that by 1 million people, it can be chaos. So it's understandable.
Yeah, yeah, it's definitely it's an amazing place with hugely passionate fans, and I think that's brilliant. But it's fair to say there's no Brian while you're in India, is you? You go what 2.5 to 3 months without the Bri? That must be difficult to deal with.
Yes, we certainly don't do it in India. We did, however, the last IPL was in Dubai, and we actually managed to do a couple of those
Lovely.
on the little beach side that we had there. We were cornered off in a hotel, and I mean they went out of their way to make us feel comfortable. It was almost 3 months in a very tiny little confined space, and it was frustrating at times. But the staff members and the people of Dubai helped us so much to make us feel like we at home in some sort of a way. So we did have a few bras at least, but not in India. I mean, in India there's so many different foods and different things to experience. You don't really want to actually have a braai.
Okay.
It's quite an amazing place to just try different things. Obviously, you have to be careful. I mean, our stomachs are not used to everything there, but
Yeah.
um, we do explore a little bit.
Yeah, brilliant. That sounds amazing. It's somewhere I've never been, but it's an amazing place with some pretty cool food as well, like you said, to try. But I think if we move slightly on, I think as I was telling you off air, I did read your book, and it's an amazing read because of the journey it takes you on from young AB to not too long ago. And I think AB, the autobiography, for anyone who hasn't read it, it's an amazing sports auto, and it gives you insight into you as a young man. So the parts that really interested me, a lot of it I could relate to, minus probably the talent. I think I grew up in a family with. I'm one of four boys, and I know you are one of three, and you have your two brothers, Jan and Vessels.
Yes.
And you said in the book, which I could really relate to, you said, if anybody ever conducts an academic study into the optimal childhood for an elite sports person, they will surely conclude that nothing beats growing up with in the slipstream of talented, competitive older siblings. And I think I could relate to that massively. Like I'm number 3 and 4, and the twisted, mental number 3 one who always was nipping at the heels of the older brothers. What sort of environment did you feel when you reflected writing that book? Did you feel that your upbringing with your brothers allowed you to go on, the habits that you picked up, the attitude that you developed?
Yeah, it's an interesting topic. I think you can talk about that for hours. I actually, funny enough, about an hour ago, my eldest son is 5 years old now, and he's doing online teaching because of the whole coronavirus situation. He can't go to school at the moment, so every morning we do a couple of classes with him in front of the computer screen, and then he gets a bit of homework from time to time. And he had an outdoors activity, and there was a cricket coach that actually posted a little video of Steve Waugh and Ricky Ponting doing an interview in the UK during the Ashes.
Yeah.
And it was about 15 minutes long. And I was thinking about, like, I don't know, after 8 minutes, I thought to myself, I don't know if this is for 5-year-old kids, but I'm learning stuff. Yeah, it's amazing. It was an
Yeah.
incredible interview, but at one stage, Steve Waugh was talking about the way he was brought up with Mark, obviously, and two other brothers that not a lot of people know about, and no one
Yeah.
really reads about it. Well, I guess a lot of people know about it, but generally you just hear about Steve and Mark. But Steve was talking about how this whole environment created them to be successful, and the competitive games they had, it was just out of this world. And I can relate to that so much. He mentioned some of the games they played was almost more competitive than international cricket, and
Yeah.
there's no doubt that some of the backyard games that we played, I mean, I was in tears more often than not. My brothers were very hard on me, which was fantastic because that's the way it's supposed to be. I really had to earn every single inch I got, every batting opportunity. I had to really put in the hard yards, carry the water around, the drinks around field for hours. And then finally, my oldest brother would say, okay, just hit a couple of balls. And that was my only chance. I clearly remember deciding on those little opportunities I got, listen, I've got to make it count. I'm not going to get out. I'm just going to make it count. Because I had to wait for so long. And then more often than not, I would actually stay there for like 30, 40 minutes where they would really get agitated with me. Like, they want to close down shop now. They want to go inside, go watch telly, and I'm standing there blocking it down. So yes, we had some incredible competitive games, and it played a huge part in setting me up to be, first of all, at high school, to be strong there and to stand up for myself. Because then all of a sudden my parents weren't around anymore, my brothers weren't there. So that gave me that foundation to really feel like, you know what, I can compete with my fellow schoolmates, and I stand up for myself if I feel I'm being hard done by. And then obviously through the high school years, getting through that experience on my own set me up for success later on.
Yeah, definitely. I thought it was so brilliant. And one of the bits that I loved was when you were talking about, because you're so creative when you're a child, aren't you? Like, when you're a kid, you just make up these games, and you don't actually appreciate that what you're doing is it's like an unintended practice for later in life. So you talked like candidly about how you used to like mow the lawn, and the lawn was in like great surface, and you'd steal the roller from the cricket ground or whatever, and you'd make sure it was nice and as flat as possible, I suppose. But then whenever the surface was unplayable for whatever reason, you'd move onto the tarmac, and you would use it to practice your spin ball batting.
Yeah.
And I think, like, when you look back to that now, do you think, even though obviously the level of competition is different, it's all relative to how you maybe face a spin bowler now, or how you judge what's happening in front of you whenever that ball is being pitched. Those little bits as a youngster go a long way towards your development.
Most definitely. I must speak the words right here because I might get into trouble, but it's all part of a process. I mean, literally there were some of the games that I remember playing in the backyard and in that little area where we were playing spin. We were very close to each other distance wise. So my brother would be 5 yards away. The other one would be right here behind me. There were chirps. Some of those knocks were as important as some of my international hundreds that I scored. So that's what I'm saying. I've got to pick my words carefully, but I remember those as well as I remember some of my hundreds. I had those little challenges, and having to overcome all of those to achieve success in that little backyard was fun. I mean, incredibly important to set up small little battles that I had to face, small little mental challenges. It's my older brothers. I don't want to fail. And the times that I failed, they made me understand that I failed. I mean, it was exactly as I experienced it at the international level. And I'm not surprised that when I arrived in my first test match in Port Elizabeth, when I faced Stephen Armisen, who was number one in the world at the time, I faced the first couple of balls, and it was a huge moment. I was 20 years old. I didn't expect to be there, first of all. But secondly, I felt all of a sudden, this doesn't really feel as hard as I thought it would be. And I mean, that's all that I can clearly think back to those games in the backyard. There's no doubt that those kind of things helped for me to feel like, what Steve Armisen and the English team they're not that hard. I mean, I can survive here. So it was all part of that mental preparation, really just training my mind to understand that there's no challenge that you can't take on, as long as you just train it day in and day out, and you're motivated and hungry to get on top of things.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, having brothers and the competitiveness that comes with it, you can end up at times, it can boil over. And you had a brilliant story, which again, I could relate to in the book, where you talked about in one game, I tagged Wes and set off in such a blind haste that I ran straight into the knob of my bedroom door, and you knocked yourself out. And the urban myth, the urban legend is that you were out for roughly 30 minutes, but that's what it's all about, isn't it? It's all about, competing and battling, and then learning the lessons that you have afterwards.
I don't know if I learned much from that silly game.
No, some
That's
games
what
you don't. Yeah, some games you don't learn anything from.
some of the games we played certainly bordered on insanity. I mean, it was absolutely stupid. We would literally touch each other, so it was a touching game. But it became so serious that I would literally end up crying with my parents saying, "Listen, my brothers are bullying me," and
Yeah,
it was very competitive. For some reason, that was very important to be the last guy to touch my brother,
yeah,
and that ended up in me running into the doorknob because I mean, it was a game of 45 to an hour. Running around, I was exhausted, and all I wanted, I saw this opportunity to just touch him on his scarf. He was into his room, and I was going to sprint out and take it deep into the garden. So he's going to give up. And the next minute, I was flat on my back, full pace into the doorknob. I remember it was on my eyebrow that the doorknob hit me, and I was supposed to leave on a rugby tour the next day. I was cancelled for the rugby tour. I couldn't go. And I mean, it was quite
devastated.
serious. I had to go to the hospital and check everything up, and luckily there was no damage done. But it was a big tennis ball on my face for the next week at least.
Yeah, I can imagine. I can only imagine your parents were just going like, "These kids are going to kill each other." But I think the interesting part of the next part of that for me, AB, is that eventually you kind of you're growing up. You've got this dream to go to AFIS, which we'll get to. But the point at which your older brothers leave and go to uni, it now presents a new challenge for yourself, right? And again, it's all very relatable for people who listen. People in high performing sports have to find ways to adjust and adapt. And when they leave, you then talk about how you had to develop new games for you to do by yourself. So you talk about the ball attached to the stick and you would just knock it back straight and knock it back straight. In those early years, were we looking at someone who was like hyper focused on being the best they could be, or were you just killing time out in the garden because you like to be outside? Do you remember candidly thinking like, do you remember like thinking I'm going to be the best at this? Or were you just enjoying being outside in South Africa because the weather's beautiful?
No, there's definitely one thing that I realized in those years being all by myself. My brothers, I mean, left the house. I definitely realized that I've got this deep, incredibly desire to just be incredibly good at what I do.
Yeah.
And it was a natural thing. So I realized that once again bordering on not so well upstairs because I would literally eat tennis balls on the wall inside of the garage. There was no one around. My dad was at work. My mom would be busy with something. She wouldn't even know. I mean, we grew up in a small town where she would just tell me to be back for dinner, and that was it. So I had the golf course, the tennis courts, but I would spend a lot of time in the garage. I mean, it's like it was four garages next to each other. So it was quite a big inside, like an indoor area almost. I had my sock up there hitting cricket balls, but I spent a lot of time hitting tennis balls and pretending every shot that I hit would be myself and the other shot would be the computer or someone else, my competitor.
Yeah.
So I would play my competitor as well. Oh my word. So that's why I'm telling you, I realized there that there's this competitive thing inside of me that it just came naturally to me. I would not allow myself to win very often. I would literally let the other guy hit better shots and I would have to grind it out day in and day out to try and beat this guy. So borderline insanity, but I mean, I realized this is not my brothers pushing me or anyone else. I've got this thing inside of me. I wanna be good at what I do.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's almost like you were subconsciously pushing yourself to get better every single day. And we've talked loads in this podcast, about growth mindsets. And it's like how young and how early can you have a growth mindset without knowing that you have one? And I think, you move into AFIS at that stage. And for anyone who's listening, AFIS it's one of the forces within school sports in South Africa. One of the best sporting schools in South Africa. And I have to say that because GJ Van Velze said he'd kill me if I didn't. But I've known a lot of people who've come through AFIS, like we talked about off air, AB, and you talk about a desperate desire to go to AFIS. And then when you get there, you have this environment where it's like, okay, now you can go and you can flourish. Can you just talk about the anticipation of getting there? And then when you got there, the excitement of having everything around you to go and be super successful?
Yeah, I was very clear with that part of my life. I really wanted to go to AFIS, and I was 8 years old when I decided to to go there. I went to my mom and I said, "Listen, I'm going to that school where my brother is at." So
Yeah.
I played cricket trials in a town called, or sitting now, I think, Petersburg. And after the cricket trials, driving back to Wombas, about a 2.5 hours drive. On the way there, my mom told me that Affie's playing in the semi-finals, the first team rugby playing a semi-finals game at Melbourne-Spruit, which is on the way there. So I said, well, we're obviously stopping to have a look. My brother was there. He was then at 16 or 14 years old. So he just arrived at the school. And they were driving with buses. So first thing when I arrived there were 15 buses lined up there. And it's about a 2 hour and a half, 2 hour drive. And I thought to myself, what kind of school get 13 buses going just to watch the first team rugby play? I mean, that's crazy. And the minute I got out of the car, I heard this 1,000 school, or I think there were about 800 schoolboys singing songs. And it was the Affie's boys away from home. I think there were more guys than the opposing school, which was their own game for them. Anyway, long story short, it was an incredible game of rugby. The guys were all over them. I beat them 53-6, if I remember correctly.
Wow.
But just my brother snuck me in there. I sat next to him because they were sitting on the grass on the bottom level and the whole school behind them. So I was there close enough to sort of feel part of the school. And that was the day I told my mom I'm going there. So weekends, my brother would forget some jerseys and so on at home, and I would actually put that on and go to my school with the Affie's kit. And I obviously had to take it off when I arrived at school, but I kept trying every now and then just to sneak on the little jersey of Affie's. And I was so like 9 years old. So I decided quite early on I was going to go there. And I mean, the 5 years at Affie's, there's no doubt that it's probably the best 5 years of my life, and not the best. I mean, that's all relevant, but the most important, I'd say, from a growth perspective, finding my own feet, living up to my own expectations, and taking ownership for my own actions. I didn't do everything well at Office. I did a lot of bad stuff as well, and sort of having to deal with that myself, and not having a soundboard to bounce things off, which would be my parents. I had to really deal with those obstacles myself, which was an amazing learning curve.
Yeah, it's just an environment that is set up for people to go there who are driven and want to be successful, and that is probably reflective in the huge amount of successful. We're just focusing on the sporting people, hugely successful sporting people who've come and gone through there. It almost, the more people who come through it and speak of it the way you do, it builds this feeling of like people want to go there, because when you go there you'll work hard, and we'll get to some of the aspects in which you do that. But one of the things, you dispel a few myths within the book, and people have been very generous to you throughout your time and saying that you were, I don't know, like a Springbok under 20 when you were 14 years old or something silly, but you were hugely talented as a young sportsman. But you started off in tennis, which I'm sure people will know, but the move away from tennis is something I'm interested in, because as someone who probably could have gone on, I mean, we'll never know, but could have gone on to become a professional tennis player, had all the drive to make that a very clear reality. But then you move away from tennis because you miss out on the camaraderie of what cricket and rugby gives you. So what was the draw for you in terms of, did you just miss out on being part of a team, or what was it about you that made you think, no, I want a bit of that, I want to be in that Affie's first 15 rugby team, and I want to go and play cricket through your time there? Because the tennis was a fairly well laid out map for you to go and be successful as a tennis player.
It's quite a complicated one, that it's difficult to, and I don't exactly know to the point what happened and how it happened, but the way I spoke about Office now, and I decided when I was 8 years old that I was going to go there, was not to go and play tennis. So that's almost already the answer. I fell in love with the school because of the camaraderie that I saw, the team spirit, the school singing songs, like 1,000 guys really having an interest in each other and each other's success. So that to me, and that's the way I play my cricket as well. If you follow my career, it was always about, I could score runs, and if I didn't feel the vibe and the team was right, I would feel like we failed. That was just the way I was brought up in a way. There's almost always a bigger story than just your own success. So that was part of already my answer when I went to Office. It was not for individual sports. It was a tough decision because I could play the game of tennis and I absolutely loved it. And knowing myself, I would have really fought it down to the bone to try and make it in the game. So who knows where I would have gone. I mean, I'd be an idiot to say that I was going to make it or play professional tennis, but I know I would have grafted it down to try and make it, and I would not have given up. That's the way I was brought up. But it just didn't appeal to me at the age. I played when I was 14, my first year at Office, and a little bit of the second year when I was 15 years old. I played a couple of games against big schools. The teacher would ask me, listen, can I just, I sort of know you've finished now, but just maybe play one or two more games against Grey College and Boys Eye, and then you're fine.
Just called in for the big games.
So I did play those, and I loved it, and I played some good games as well. I've almost thought to myself, you know what, maybe I should try this again.
Yeah.
But then I got the taste of rugby. It was tough. It was a difficult decision because rugby, I was nowhere. I mean, I made the sixth side under 15F or whatever you call it, under 16, same thing. Then I played hockey for a year. And then all of a sudden, I don't know, something just clicked, and that desire once again came through, that hunger, because I always had this thing in my mind that I wanted to play for the first team, and I wanted to be the fly-off wearing that white jersey. So I was once again gonna do everything in my ability to make that happen, and somehow I just managed to fall onto my lap.
Yeah, no, I think it's just a great story of someone who works towards their goals. But I think, if you break that down at that age, what were some of the things that you did at AFIS to work yourself into that position? At such a young age, you obviously had a clear idea that what you wanted. You said it yourself. You wanted that number 10 jersey, but at the age of, there's not many people at the age between 15 and 17 or 18, depending on how old or young you are, UK wise, in school. There's not many people who can see it and then go and put a plan in action to do it. But what were some of the things that you did?
So I'm quite an intense individual when it comes to performance. I'm very hard on myself more often than not. I've realized over time that I shouldn't be too hard on myself, but it's also one of my strengths. I would never want to let that go. It's a really good thing. I'm a good reflector after games. I come very hard at myself, especially if I know I've copped out and I didn't play as well as I should have, or I made a thinking error or mental error. So that was probably one of the main things why I came through. I wasn't going to give up, and I'm very hard on myself. And I was trying to find the answers. Why am I playing in the under 14 F team? I mean, I can't be the sixth best fly off in the school. It's impossible. And same thing. Then I thought, I was literally crying on my mother's lap every weekend, going, I don't understand it. I'm playing good games of rugby, and I can't even get into the E team. I mean, it's a long way out. So it was tough to get through. And I think in the main thing, I wasn't going to give up. That's number one. And I'm very hard on myself. But to the point that I'm not too hard on myself. I had the ability to change when I was 16 to go and play a year of hockey to get my mind away from it a little bit. A game that I enjoy, hit the ball around, score some goals. And I was always going to come back and give it one more big push, And then the second thing that is very important is opportunity.
Yeah.
So I'll once again, standard 9, or when I was 17, I think I was in the 5th team. So same old boat. Then I played the guy in the 4th side. So luckily, I mean, one of the coaches came to me and said, listen, you had a good game there. I think we're going to swap you in the 4th team fly off. I said, great. I'm moving in the right direction here.
Yeah.
I was starting to play better and better. I was really good at my tactical kicking. I was spraying the ball. I wasn't dropping any balls. So the basics were in place. I wasn't the biggest fly, but I knew I was heading in the right direction. And then one Saturday, there was an injury in the 3rd side. I was forced into the 3rd team. I didn't break it open. And then the 2nd team coach watched me play that 3rd team game. I had a blinder away from home. I had a good game. And the exact same thing happened. He immediately went to the 2nd team coach, said, listen, we've got to give this guy a chance at 2nd team. Big derby against Boys Eye at Boys Eye's field. Everyone was getting ready for the 1st team game, and we played the game before. And I had literally the best game of my life. I was running the game. I had the pace, everything. And the next week, the 1st team coach said, listen, you're in the squad. And it happened in a matter of 3 weeks.
It's amazing.
From the 5th team to the 1st side, and that was it. That was the end of the story. I mean.
And I dare say once you had it, no one was getting it off you. That kind of probably goes without saying. Once you had what you wanted, it was like, okay, this is mine now and no one else is getting a chance. One of the things you touch on in the book, which I know it's a bit like Fight Club, like rule number 1 of Fight Club is you don't talk about Fight Club, but you touch on this like AFI guts kind of thing where, which I thought was just amazing. When I read it, I was just like, that is so good. And you refer to it as like this deep desire to just fight and fight and fight until the other team breaks down. I mean, it sounds like you had a lot of that in in you already as a youngster, as a personality wise, but it sounds like that was a perfect environment for you.
Absolutely. I definitely had it in me. There's no doubt about it. And
Mm.
it's never going to go away. But it was something that was bigger than all the individuals at the school. It was a school thing. You're not allowed to give up. So it was part of what you were taught when you arrived, when you're 14, first day at school. We don't care what you do, but you're not going to give up at what you do.
Mm.
So that was like it was a thing at the school. It was bigger than the individual. You were just forced to follow that, and luckily I already had that in me, and it came quite naturally to me. I wasn't gonna give up on anything that I do. And I mean, it's amazing when you play a game of rugby and you hear the crowd or the boys like sing that, and I mean, it sort of just it lifts you up big time, and it just reminds you, as 15 players on that field, we've got a job to do here. We're behind, and that's normally when they sing it. And
Yeah.
then you got a job to do, and you got to push it to the end. And more often than not, we would turn it around and win the game.
Yeah, it sounds like an amazing place. I've told GJ and Vinand Olafia, who I know you know well.
Yeah,
Next time when I visit South Africa, I have to see Affy's, because I went to a relatively large rugby playing school in Ulster. And there was a similar feel. It had history and pedigree, and I think to see what Affy's has and the way that they just build this culture is probably a word that's thrown
yeah,
around everywhere. But a culture in a school is perfect, because it
yeah.
just teaches you all these things that you are so important for later in life. And I think so. We move slightly to like the tennis thing really interested me, because you kind of had this ability to learn. You learned the benefits of training really early, and I think that's part of, and I mean, I'm not, you're right here, I'm not going to speak for you, but part of the reason why you were so successful, because you could see that training and working hard had rewards. Okay, so whenever you talked about your, and I'm going to attempt to pronounce this, okay, but your old tennis coach, Derek,
Yeah.
how do you say double O-M in Afrikaans? Is it
That was Derek.
Just Derek,
Derek,
is it?
Derek Sullivan and Danny. Yes.
Yeah, but one of the quotes from your book was that AB has great potential. Sorry. AB has great potential and he ought to train every day, but he must never stop enjoying the game. There should always be time for an ice cream. And you talk later about how the ice cream can develop into a beer as you get older. But what it says is that you're getting this balance of understanding the importance of working absolutely yourself into the ground, but being able to balance that with enjoying yourself as well. Do you feel like you've always had that balance?
No, no, I don't think so. I had to discover a lot of things and adapt and figure out certain things as I moved on. I certainly didn't have everything in place, and it's okay to fail sometimes and not to get things right. Similar to this rugby story that I just told,
Yeah.
and with tennis, I clearly remember losing games and losing it because I would sort of crack mentally. A guy would play a different kind of game plan that I'm not used to, and I would lose my plan or my game, and eventually lose the game. And I mean, I was quite young. I'm talking 8, 9 years old. Yeah. So, but I would be very hard on myself. But I would remember that like yesterday. But my point is, it's all part of the process, and it's little battles and challenges that you have to go through. But at the age of 7 and 8, I was already training my mind to get through situations like that when someone surprises you with a different game plan. So that's
Yes.
my point. You can't get everything immediately spot on. And you just got to hang in there sometimes and try and find the learning out of every situation. And that's definitely what I did with tennis. I was traveling the country at the age of, my first tournament was when I was 6, like competitive tournament in the under 9
Wow.
age group. That's very young. And until I was, well, from 6 till 13, I was traveling the world, the country every single holiday. I wouldn't have holidays. I would literally just go and play competitive tennis across the country in different conditions, windy, then it would be different courts, be slow or faster. And this is how I would learn my trade, and cry on the side of the court sometimes on my mother's lap and ask her what was going on there. And she would try and explain to me what happened in that game. And more often than not, it would be a mental error, or someone would start pushing the balls, and I wasn't used to that. So I would sort of lose my shape. But anyway, long story short, every single game that I played from 6 till 13 on tennis courts, I would learn little lessons. And it didn't happen overnight. Obviously, when I was 11, 12, 13, I became quite good at the game. game, I was number one in the country, and two for that time span. But I didn't feel like I was on top of the game and I knew everything. And I was patient enough with myself to understand as you grow older, you're going to learn little things as you move on. And same with cricket. I mean, it wasn't always a smooth ride. There was a lot of rocky patches. And it's okay. It's still rocky at times. I mean, people might look at me now and go, yeah, but your stats look like it's perfect and this and that. And it's not perfect. There's a lot of little battles that I have to go through every single time that I play. And that would be my message to kids. Everything doesn't come easy, or nothing comes easy. Everything you've got to work for, and in every little situation you can learn something from.
It's perfect. My next question, you're reading my mind here, was around the fact that you're now a dad and you're now, you have kids, and you may have even, at times coached kids or have people around you who've had kids who you can see have this fight and this desire. Is it important for you to ensure that they find the balance? So if you reflect on your relationship with your kids now, like, I'm sure they're sporty and I'm sure they're brought up with, cricket balls being thrown around the place and rugby balls. Do you drive them to try and have fun whilst they try and learn these lessons that you did?
It's once again an interesting one, because I don't know what the right answer is.
No, and I don't think there is a right answer, AB. I think it's just,
most of the time I actually doubt myself and I go, are they playing enough, or are they playing too much? I don't know. All I know is when I was growing up, it just happened naturally and I would just go crazy and no one had to tell me anything. So I think I'm going to try and do the same with them. Just create opportunities. I spoke to the golf coach today, so they're going to start golf lessons, and I don't know if it's early or late, or they're 3 and 5, but I'm just going to throw it out there. If they like it, they do. If they don't, then so be it. I don't know what the answers are. I know a balance is very important. I know it's important for me to be myself and to be a good dad, and more importantly, to be a good human being and to show them what it means to have good values and to enjoy the little things in life, and not just I don't know. You know what I mean? So I don't know. I don't know what the right answers are. All I know is I'm gonna try and be the best possible human being around them, and hopefully they will catch on and do their own thing.
No, I mean, there is no right answer, but I think the way you attack it sounds perfect. I'm not a dad. I mean, but I think all you can try and do is create opportunities for them to thrive in whatever they look to enjoy. But I think it's just very interesting for someone who is as driven a young man as you were. Hopefully one of the wee men that you've got, has the same drive. And as long as they find something that they enjoy, I think that's what most parents will suggest. So if we segue slightly now to the real performance side of cricket. Okay. So obviously someone who's you've put out some seriously ridiculous numbers in the world of cricket, but to every physical action, there's a mental action. And the part that I'm interested in is someone who is, I have to tell you, a dreadful cricketer, considerably better at many other sports. But when the ball gets slung around in the indoor barn at Worcester, I always try and give it a go. And the South Africans tend to laugh at me, but the mental aspect of facing balls, and not just facing the balls, the length of time that you can be out there in the crease is something that really interests me from a performance point of view. So in terms of you yourself, where you are now, you probably have a relatively smooth process for preparing for games. Can you delve into that or give us any insight into the things that you use to prepare for games, whether it's, some people use like the breathing techniques or visualization, or we had David Milan on and he talked about a lot of his was just about preparation, and then he was just allowed to go and play pretty freely. What does it look like for AB de Villiers?
Good question. It's changed a lot over 16 or 17 years that I've played professionally now. And I think that already is an answer. I've never been so stubborn and stuck on one thing that I've never been stuck in a bubble.
Yeah.
I've always been open to, this feels better than last time. So I'm just going to stick with what I'm doing now. So I've changed my technique a lot. I've changed my preparation a lot. The way I would recover afterwards. I've been intense for a few seasons, then I've been the opposite sometimes. And I don't regret any of that. It's all part of that thing of me just learning as I move on. I'm very comfortable now. There are more mental challenges now than anything else. I understand what I need to do physically to get into a space of performance, and also fitness wise to get into shape where I feel I can play long innings and at a very good intensity. I know my drills, and once again, I'm not scared of changing. So if I arrive at the next IPL hitting balls and I feel something feels different than last season, I'm not going to try and fight it too much. I'm going to try and sort of find an answer around that. And even from game to game, I would change sometimes. I've never been scared of that. But I've tried the breathing techniques. I've tried meditation.
Tried it all.
Those things unfortunately tire me out more than anything else, and it makes me think about the game too much, which is not good for me. And that also I had to go through to realize that. I don't know. Once again, all I want to try and do is get in an as comfortable space as possible before a game. I've scored runs feeling incredibly nervous, but I've also scored runs feeling relaxed. So once again, I don't know what the answer is, and I don't know what's good for me.
No.
But I try and be as consistent as possible with little things that I do. I don't have any superstitions, but I sort of try and get into the relaxed mindset. When I feel very anxious, I try and find a way to break away from that, listen to music, or I would sometimes pray, or whatever the case may be. It'd be different for every person, but sometimes I can't shake it. Then I go with that anxiety and that pressure and that nervousness into the game.
Yeah.
I end up sometimes getting a duck, sometimes I score 100. So once again, there's no right recipe, and you don't have to fight it too much. I think the answer would be, at the moment for me, is whatever I get on the day, I sort of try and work with that, and mentally I try and break those little challenges that I face from time to time.
Yeah, I mean, again, I'm not looking for any holy. I mean, if you had the answers, surely you'd be writing them in a book, and we'd be selling that. But I think the really interesting part is that I think everybody who listens to this, whether they're playing for their local amateur cricket team or whether they're an international cricket player, everybody can relate that some days you feel different. And I know for a fact that I've gone into games feeling really tense, like very emotional, very what you would describe before a rugby game as perfect. You're right on the edge of losing it, and that's where you need to be with physical sports. But I've felt like that and played really well, and I felt like that and played horrifically. There is no right answer, but what you're looking to do is try and create, in rugby anyway, what we do is we create like a process that we're trying to make sure that we're ticking off to give us the best chance for performance. So one of the things you touched on there was like your cardio. Now, ignorantly, how important is the cardio for someone who's going to be in that crease for a long time? Because you do hear some guys who have had massive benefits from doing it, and at the same time you still got guys who go out there who are slightly chubby, who are spanking the ball around where they want to. Do you think cardio is a huge part of being in that crease?
Yeah, it certainly plays a part. It's not the main thing. The mental capacity, the mental space that you get yourself into is by a long way the most important thing. Cardio certainly plays a role. I mean, if you really want to be the best in the world, there's no doubt that you've got to get that in order. Your fitness, your strength, and your fitness is vitally important. I've got a little gym in my house, so I always try and just stay in shape throughout the year, even if I don't play a lot. IPL is incredibly intense. I can't arrive there a little bit unfit, and with all the youngsters arriving these days, I mean, I'm going to clearly fall behind. So, to me, it's important. It's a 5% maybe. It's not 80%. I would say it's a 5%, but I don't want to lose that 5%, because why do I want to be at 90% if I can be at 95? So,
it's perfect.
Yeah. The main thing is the mental space that I can find myself into, because no matter what situation I find myself into, whether I'm nervous or feeling fantastic, there's always a mental challenge. And if I really want to, I can always overcome it. But sometimes I'm a little bit weak. 1 out of 10 or 2 out of 10 times I let go. And for a brief moment, I end up in the change room and I think, oh, that was a disappointing day. So more often than not, I would work on the mental space and try and get myself into a space where I'm going to fight it out. I know if I do that consistently, I'm going to perform generally, and I'm going to do well.
Brilliant. Really enjoy that. I think that fight, when people talk about 1%ers and 2%ers and, cardio and fitness, when you are at that point where you're, probably regularly banging out 85 to 90%, 5% is a huge gain. So it makes sense to think that you would try and look after your body. I think if we focus now on the term purple patches is what they talk about in any sport, but it's this part of the game when you're playing your sport and everything is just going for you. You've put in all those hard yards, you've done all the work, you've mentally prepared yourself for the right place. And then you had one of those purple patches in your one-day international against West Indies at the Wanderers in 2015, like 149 off 44 balls. Now, it's an incredible score, and you've probably had a million journalists, which I'm not, to ask you about how it felt and how whatever. But I want you to try and reflect on what you saw, how you felt, as opposed to just, externally how it felt, because obviously it feels brilliant. But like, do you remember thinking back, when you think back to it, do you remember like any feelings of like, were things just happening in slow motion for you? Did you just know where the ball was going before he'd thrown it? Were you looking, could you pick up triggers before you'd even seen it? Like, what did it feel like in that moment?
The first ball was not good, and then the rest was
Yeah.
the rest was like that. No, I can certainly touch on. You talk about a purple patch, but it wasn't for that one game. It was for like a season and a half where I felt very motivated to win the World Cup in 2015.
Yeah.
So everything that I did leading up to that point was just aimed towards the World Cup. And that's what I just touched on from a mental space or mental capacity is that's exactly what I mean. When I'm in that kind of space mentally, I'm gonna really drive myself to do better and better, and I'm not gonna stop for 1 second. So I was in that space because of the World Cup, and before that we had a series in Zimbabwe against Australia and Zim, a triangular, and I was playing some of the best cricket of my life, and everything was just aimed to that World Cup. Every meeting I had as captain, I was telling the boys, World Cup, that's our focus. One step at a time. We take small steps, small processes, one step. Everything is just World Cup. So that 149-44 was just World Cup batting. That's all it was. And I remember I didn't want to go out. I wanted to send David Miller in to go and face the left-arm spinner. Needless to say, the left-arm spinner didn't end up bowling at all, so it would have been a bad call. But the coach and some of the players just said, "No, not a good idea. You go out." And I said, "Okay, cool." So I was in that nervous space that day. I was stumbling down the stairs. I remember almost falling down. The guys were giggling at me. I thought, "Oh, here we go. My parents are here today." It's a packed stadium. I can't even walk. I don't know. I'm going to hit the cricket ball. And the first ball, I was very early on it. A little hack. Luckily, it was a slow ball. But getting that away immediately told me who bowls a slow ball to a new batter first up. They are feeling sort of scared, and they're on the back foot. They're very defensive. And I just thought, you know what? I saw that one very well first up. Felt like a good wicket. I don't need to assess much longer. I'm going to make it a special day. And now, once again, World Cup came into my head. If I wanted to send a statement as a team, if we wanted to send a statement to the world and show them that we're there to go and win the World Cup, this is the kind of situations where we take it to the next level, score 400s and send fear into the bowling lineups leading up to the World Cup. So that was my thinking. And I mean, it was an incredible vibe. The atmosphere was out of this world. It was one of the very few times in South African situation or in South African grounds that people were chanting my name. I would hear that in India from time to time, but I'd never to that point heard it in South Africa. And then that started in the 43rd over or something. I thought, wow, this is special. I got goosebumps. I got goosebumps at the time when it happened. And then I remembered, hold on, my parents are here. I'm like, oof, here we go. I'm on 40 off whatever balls. We are set up for something special. And then I started, I mean, you pick up little information, little hints as you move on and as you play. In days like that, I was very aware of my surroundings, the size of the boundaries, the wind conditions, who's going to bowl, who not. I had a very clear plan, and I mean, it doesn't always come that naturally or easy. Sometimes I have to work harder for that, but that day it just felt like everything was very natural, and I understood the pace of the game very quickly. And I mean, some of the shots that just came off, I didn't have a lot of luck. It came out of the middle of the bat most of the times, and it was just a great experience to be out there.
Yeah, Mr. 360 was in full 360. It was so impressive. I watched it back just before we had a chat, just because I think it's such an impressive feat. But we're going to move slightly towards the intensity of what you do. So the intensity of what you go through as a cricketer who played all formats. You know, in cricket, you kind of move from league to league depending on when they're on and who wants you and stuff. And it's all quite complicated. But what it can lead to is the high demand of AB de Villiers for every team who wants them. So you have all three formats of South African cricket, and then you have the other teams that can acquire your skills. Do you hit the point where you obviously announce your retirement from South African cricket? Did that feel like a point in which you just almost got the point where you were nearly burnt out? You'd done too much. It was moving away from, you know, maybe you were sacrificing family time, which I know is hugely important to you with a young family.
Yes, yeah, I think there was a point where I burnt out a bit. A lot of cricket was one of the reasons. The World Cup disappointment. I just explained to you how we built up for that World Cup, and
Yeah.
I felt like that was the one. You know, that was going to be the one that we're going to break the shackles. I was mentally there. I know my teammates were mentally there, and we were ready. So, and it sometimes in life it doesn't happen, and it was very hard for me to deal with that. It took me, I think, about 18 months to get over that completely, of not really feeling that grudge anymore. And like, you know, anyway, that was a big part of it. And then with that disappointment and having to deal with it mentally, I started feeling tired as well. Every time I would walk out, I'd feel like I don't have that desire anymore, you know. And once again, we spoke about it earlier, how important desire is to me, and that hunger to want to perform and to be the best. And the minute I feel like, you know what am I doing here? I lose a big part of my game plan and of what I do. Then the family also, I mean, played a huge role. All of a sudden, I'm there. I've lost a little bit of my hunger. There's that World Cup thing still in my head, and my wife and my youngest, or my first son, is at home sitting there, and I'm missing them, and everything just changed, and it all hit me at one
Yeah.
time. So it was a very difficult patch for me to work through. I'm very happy that I found a way to not leave everything then, and sort of I got away from the game a touch, and then I came back again for a while. I had a few things that I still wanted to achieve. That last final Test series against Australia was a huge tick for me. Once again, you'll see some of that same kind of hunger in that series. I was incredibly motivated to, because I knew in my mind, you know what, I didn't have a lot of fuel in the tank left. I'm going to give it one big push here and see where I go from there. I didn't know at the time exactly that I was going to finish after that series, because I was still trying to work it out. But all I knew was I wanted to do well here.
Yeah.
I had a fantastic series, and the minute I walked away there and I'd spent a bit of time at home, a month later, I called my manager and I said, listen, I think I'm done with international cricket. It sort of just came to me. I didn't want to push on till the next World Cup. And it just all of a sudden, everything felt like a big mountain to climb to, with everything that I just mentioned now. And I'm not scared of mountains. It's not that. It was just, I just felt like it was time to move on. Also, the environment the team was in, or the space the team was in at that moment, I think they needed a bit of fresh blood. They needed something different as well. There was enough leaders there to take it forward. So, I mean, there was a lot of things that played a role, and I just felt like it was time for me to spend 6 months of the year at home instead of 2 months of the year at home. And I got my wish. It came with a big price. I mean, there was a big kickback and a lot of bad press and this and that. So it was once again not an easy time for me, but looking back now, it was definitely the right call, and I'm in a very good space in my life. I'm enjoying my cricket. I'm enjoying family time and everything that I do at the moment. I feel I have time for it. I have time to plan and to prep and to do things properly. So yes, long story, a lot of words. Sorry about that, but
No, no,
it
no.
was a tough time.
It's so important because people will just want you to run yourself into the ground. You know, they don't appreciate the word sacrifice. Like, some people in sport don't like sacrifice, because what we get to do, I'm speaking you as a professional cricketer and me as a professional rugby player, we're hugely honored and very lucky to do what we do. But the sacrifice can be huge, and when you do end up sacrificing families first, you know, that everybody who talks about it, like, family comes first, you sacrifice some family time, it can become very difficult, and it can start to actually sap into your output as a professional sports person. So the quality of your batting, or the quality for me to throw absolute pies from above my head. But I wonder, you know, when we think about the next stage, AB, you know, one thing I'm very, very keen not to do, and I have people on here, particularly people who've been in the games for a long time, is to like suggest that there's an end point for them. is it a case for you that you're just going to keep playing as long as you're loving it and as long as you're enthusiastic and as long as you've got hunger and Affy's guts in you, you'll just keep playing?
Yes, it's a balance. I mean, it's important for me to feel like I'm loving what I'm doing. So I've got to really enjoy it. The minute I don't enjoy what I do, I'm going to stop. But I only play a few months of the year now, so it's difficult not to enjoy it. I look forward to
Yeah.
getting back on the park now. So it's a different kind of space that I'm in. Where at the end of my career, you mentioned something about people expect you to be for you to grind yourself into the ground. I don't mind doing that, and I haven't minded throughout my entire career. I've done it plenty of times, and I love doing that, especially for bigger cause, for my country and my teammates. But there definitely comes a time when you have to get the balance right again. The minute the balance gets off a touch, which it certainly was 2015 onwards, I needed to make a few changes. And unfortunately for some of the people who feel like I've made the wrong decision, unfortunately, that was the right thing for me at the time. It's just one of those things. I feel I've got a better balance now. It's very difficult to start after having a 2 or 3 month break. It's a big
Yeah.
challenge, but I love that challenge once again. I feel fresh to take that on. It's not that I'm sitting overseas for 3 months. I'm at home in my gym. I'm at the nets here at the University of Pretoria. I come back home. I take my kids to school. I pick them up. That's where I want to be. And then I want to go for a month or two, but then I want to come home again. I don't want to come home and then go for 2 months again. So
Yeah.
those days are over for me. It's just how it is. And it was important for me to figure that out myself and not to take too much advice in. I sat down, I figured it out myself, and I came to that conclusion.
Yeah, I think it's brilliant. I think everybody reaches those decisions and those big points in their lives where they make those decisions. I'm glad for you that you have made that and that it's something that you're very well managed at the moment. So, last two questions. This one should be the last question, but we're going to do it now because we've touched so much on your upbringing and your attitude and stuff. But I think if you could give any advice to youngsters, we get a few young people who listen to this, people who are interested in sport, maybe they want to be a Premier League footballer or whatever it is. What advice would you give to someone who has who has dreams and wants to get to the very top?
I would say be patient, be prepared to put off. I mean, it's all cliches, but it's important to put in the hard yards and to understand where you're going. So have your direction clear, but be patient with yourself. Don't burn yourself out when you're 16 years old because you have to achieve everything in 1 week. Be patient with yourself. Things happen, take a long time to happen, and then they happen unbelievably quickly. I mean, up until 19, I was sitting in Ireland playing club cricket, which is nothing wrong with that. But I was within a year later, I was playing for the Proteas against the best team in the world. So um, for 2 years, I was absolutely nowhere, and I had to be very patient. And the minute I got opportunities, and that's my next point, little doors will open up, and if you're not ready, then you will slip up. So be patient with yourself, work very hard, and wait for that little door to open up. It will open up if it's your destiny to be good at something or to go into a certain line or do business or whatever the case may be. There will be a door, and you've got to first of all recognize the opportunity, which is not always easy, and secondly, you've got to take it and be prepared for it. So I think in a nutshell, that's basically it. That's what happened in my career, and I've always been ready for those little moments. I understood big moments, and I knew when the right coaches were there, and when it's the right time to pull finger. And I was so prepared for that because I was patient with myself leading up to that, and I wasn't scared of putting the hard yards in.
Yeah, absolutely. Great advice from someone who's done it. I think a nice little tip to Carrickfergus Cricket Club as well. Back home, as a Northern Irish guy, I thought it was brilliant when I heard you spent some time over there, and I'm sure you got to sample some nice Northern Irish pints of Guinness, which makes me even happier. Final question, AB de Villiers, away from cricket, we talked about the intensity of everything that you do, everything that goes into preparing to be the best cricketer that you can be. How do you get away? I know you're involved with a new company or a relatively new business called MobiG Cart, which is the next level golf cart, which I thought was amazing. I'm a big golfer. I know you're a big golfer. Does that provide you an opportunity to get away from that? Is it something you're interested in moving into after cricket finishes?
I'm trying to sort of explore different opportunities. It's not easy. I mean, business is a complete different field than what I'm used to, but it's very nice. I mean, it's different. There's Moby G. There are a few other things as well that I'm trying to sort of see if it's something that I'll enjoy or if I have a passion in that. Once again, I'm not too rushed. I feel that urge when I talk to my wife at night. I tell her, you know what, I just wish something would come up that I can sort of feel like I'm heading in another direction as well with the cricket. But there's time. I mean, I'm not too impatient. I think the most valuable thing at the moment for me is to be at home with the kids, to see them grow up. And once again, I'll be ready when that little door opens up. So Moby G is something that we are getting into. It's the first locally manufactured golf cart. So it's something that's proudly South African, which is quite cool. And it's very nice to be part of that. Lots of challenges. I mean, I'd never in my wildest dreams thought it'd be that complicated, but it's great. I'm learning so much, and I sit in board meetings. I do things that I've never done before. So I absolutely love that. I have this manager, Ed Griffiths, who set up my whole life away from cricket. So I have meetings with my own stuff as well, from taxes to pretty much everything. We sit down 4 times a year. So those are the kind of things I do away from cricket. We look at opportunities. It's a whole different chat. But funny enough, a lot of the basics are similar to what I'm used to, but it's certainly foreign. So slowly but surely, I'll try and get myself into something, and hopefully that little door opens up. Maybe it's the golf carts, who knows?
Maybe save me one when I come over to hack my way around the golf courses in South Africa. But I think a lot of the transferable skills are very important. That hard work, that ability to take information on board and progress and learn, they're all things that will stand you in good stead. And I think finally, the final question is something I'm quite keen to touch on, because you know, I haven't chatted to people who know you, haven't read your book. I know one thing that's very important to you is this connection that you have with your friends from school, because your rise to I suppose stardom sounds a bit yeah, but we're going to go with it. Your rise to stardom has been amazing, and you'll have people who hang on and people who want to be involved with AB de Villiers because of what you're doing on the cricket pitch and all the rest of it that goes with it. But your old friends, and I'm going to go for it again, but your other buds, is your earbuds. These people are very sorry.
Ancient friends.
Ancient friends, yeah, your old buds. They're very important to you, though. So, if we round it up with this, you know, everything that comes and goes, your old friends, the character that you are as a person, these people are still very important to you.
Yeah, there's a song from Ed Sheeran that describes it very well. I'm sure you've heard it, where he talks about some of the people raised me, and I love going home. So it's very similar to that. Nothing that I've done in my life or any of them will change our friendship. I mean, our friendship is something that started when we were very young, and it's always stayed the same. We treat each other the same still to this day. And I feel like that with any other human being that I meet. I mean, I'm not going to be friends with everyone, but I'm going to show someone the respect that he deserves, and that what I received growing up, and the way my parents brought me up, and they taught me you give respect to no matter who the person is, whether he's poor or wealthy, rich or poor, strong or weak. No matter what the person is on the other side, you give him the same kind of respect than you with what you would think people have to treat you by. So I based everything on that principle. And with my friendships, I mean, I haven't gone to a level where all of a sudden I've got to mingle with the cool people. It feels weird to actually even say that. But yes, I mean, I'm not too complicated with that. I don't think about it too much. I have my good mates. I have people that I just know that are not very close, but I'm the same with everyone, and I love being like that, because I think that's just the right way. I mean, it just comes naturally. It's the way I was brought up. So yes, I don't know. I'll just sort of answer that in another way. All I know is obviously things change and priorities change. Their family, kids. We don't see each other as much anymore. There are lots of other friends from office that I would like to see more often, and you just don't get to it. But if you see them 5 years later, I know that we'll still have the same connection. There's no doubt about it, because of the principles that we have. And those kind of friends I know have the same values and principles. And that's what it comes down to.
No, I love it. I think it's brilliant. I think it's usually a good reflection of someone's character, which for me personally is very important. And I just want to say a huge thank you for your time. I think it's been so insightful. I've stolen just over an hour of your time after the kids have gone to bed, and I just think it's. I just want to say a huge thank you on behalf of me and everyone at Wind Your Neck and anyone who listens to this for letting us take that time from you. It's just been so insightful, so much great information on high performance, but also how your early years can mold and create character that will stand you instead for whenever you get a lot older, like I am now. So thank you so much, and we appreciate your time.
Spot on. It's a huge pleasure, and thanks for the chat. I really enjoyed it, and I hope the listeners will get some valuable insight. I don't know what they're going to learn, but hopefully there's a couple of points they can hang on to and apply in their own lives, and hopefully it works for them. So thank you very much for the chat, and yeah, God bless.
Legend AB, thank you very much.